Welcome, everyone. It is 12:30 on Thursday, November 7th, and you are in the right place. If you are here for Unlock the Future of eDiscovery with AI, essential skills jobs, and the latest in relativity, my name is Jared Coseglia. I am the founder and CEO of True Staffing Partners, and I am so delighted and honored to be joined by two of the most preeminent contributors to the development of the relativity certification education ecosystem. The leaders in this group, led by Danielle Urban, who's been with Relativity for a very long time and who I've had the great pleasure of working with, and Parker Strubar, who joins us as well. Thank you, Parker and Danielle, for joining us. Say hi to everybody.
Hey,
Hi,
everybody.
everyone. Thanks for having us, Jared.
We're really excited to have everybody here. A couple few quick housekeeping things as people are slowly trickling in over the next few minutes as we get the program started. We've got an hour here and we've got a ton of content to share with you that's really hopefully going to paint a picture of where relativity is going, where AI is part of the relativity ecosystem, where you can invest your time, effort, and energy in order to beef up your skill sets. And it's not just going to be in one singular place, which is what's going to be super interesting to unpack, and how this is impacting the job market and what True is seeing in terms of what clients and candidates are saying as it relates to the need for and the aggregation of AI skills in the e-discovery space. We are going to have questions throughout. So you'll see the Q&A button. Use the Q&A button for questions. I'll be fielding questions throughout. We don't have to wait till the end. If you've got a question, throw it in there. We may not get to it instantaneously, but I promise you we'll get to as many people's questions as we can. But we'll also, in the chat section, be providing more information for everybody. So make sure you're looking in the chat section for additional links that will provide you with additional information around a lot of the different topics that we're talking about. So with little further ado, why don't we tell everybody what exactly we're going to talk about today and what they're going to get out of hanging out with us for the next hour. Main insights here. We're going to help you assess your current AI skill set. Some of you out there may have more AI skills than you think. And I think all of us speaking the same language and understanding, particularly in the relativity space, where those AI skills can be harnessed and where they currently lie. We're going to talk about how to effectively communicate what your AI expertise is or what your pursuit of expertise is within the relativity ecosystem. And maybe we'll even touch a little bit upon how that can give you advantage on an interview. One of the things we're finding is a lot of people are asking the question very broadly of, tell me a little bit about what you're doing with AI, whether it's in your personal or professional life. And so we'll talk about how to talk about that in both directions. And then finally, we'll help you understand where AI skills will be tested for certification within the relativity ecosystem currently and in the future. And this was really cool insight and news to me that I'm really excited for Danielle and Parker to share with us. And then we'll close up with identifying the high demand AI skills to pursue for future opportunities to give you vertical and financial mobility. And for hiring managers, this will also give you a sense of what other hiring managers are thinking of in terms of the kinds of skills they're out there seeking and pursuing. So with no further ado, let's get into AI in relativity. And Danielle, I'm going to turn it over to you to walk us through the history of
Okay,
AI in relativity.
okay, cool. So before we get into kind of like the latest and greatest, I wanted to pause and kind of go back in time and review how relativity has incorporated different types of AI into the product over time in the past, starting with machine learning and natural language processing. So natural language processing is where we allow computers to understand, generate, manipulate human language. So think of it like a search engine or type ahead text or checking grammar and spelling. So if we go back to 2008, Relativity integrated content analyst into relativity analytics, and you could use conceptual analytics like clustering, which is kind of grouping documents into conceptually similar groups. 2010, technology assisted review began to outperform manual review, reducing time, costs, effort. And that's kind of where you use sample coded docs to train the system. So like machine learning to predict coding decisions for remaining docs, and you kind of review the results and repeat and update. In 2012, we officially launched Relativity Assisted Review, and also in 2012, the De Silva-Moore case, where the court ruled that computer assisted review is acceptable to use. So we kind of saw more of an uptick shortly after that. In 2013, structured analytics also was a thing. Think email threading, near-dupe detection, and really this uses pattern matchers and parsing to understand complex email chains. And if you go to the next slide, we jump ahead to 2017. So Relativity did decide to replace a relativity assisted review with active learning. And this is really where attorneys code docs. The active learning classifies those docs based on decisions and serves up relevant documents. And then the model continues to kind of serve documents up. The review is validated by attorneys, and it continues. 2019, other forms of AI, name, norm, communication analysis. More recently, Review Center launched a few years ago. Think sentiment analysis, integration of our text IQ products like contracts, relativity contract, or I'm sorry, that was not a text IQ product. Different. Also in 2022, ChatGPT was released. And 2023, ChatGPT 4 passed the uniform bar exam, which really kind of empowered Relativity to play more with that technology. And this year, we made Relativity Air for Review generally available. And really, like the technology we're more using today, specific to Relativity Air for Review, leverages the large language models or LLMs and generative AI. And really, I'll pass it off to Parker to tell you more about the products that use AI today.
Awesome. Thanks, Danielle. And like Danielle said, before I go into the intricacies of the Air product suite, I did want to take a step back and compare some of these other tools that Danielle previously mentioned, specifically Active Learning, Review Center, and Air for Review. So comparing how these three tools leverage AI in different ways. So Active Learning functions where a reviewer would need to code at least 5 documents positively and 5 documents negatively to create the training set that would then be given to the classifier. Based off of this training set, the classifier would then decide and perform the binary classification for all the documents remaining in the set. Example for coding all documents is either responsive or unresponsive. So this was Relativity's first foray in creating a document review tool that was powered by machine learning. Now, our preferred document review tool is Review Center. So this is an AI-powered review that you can build off any saved search. MT, if you could click one more slide so that blurb pops up. Perfect. So as you can see here, you can spend 50% less time setting up projects in Review Center when compared to Active Learning. So overall, this is a much more efficient and a much smarter tool to perform document review. So it has more performant integrated learning classifier and built-in validation workflows, which provides a reactive collective analysis, rather, of every document in the set. So since this is now the preferred tool, if you can see at the bottom of this slide here, the active learning application is actually going to become read-only by the end of 2024, as all of that functionality that was contained within the active learning application has now been transferred over into Review Center. So in conjunction with this, from a certification perspective, all of relevant exams that previously tested on active learning will now transition to testing on Review Center by the end of the year. And we'll get into a little bit more on that later as well. So now comparing active learning and Review Center to, oh, sorry, MT, can you go back a little to the previous slide? Thanks. Sorry, just one more thing on this slide. Comparing it to Air for Review. So Air for Review differs from these previous tools in that instead of a reactive analysis, it proactively identifies important documents based on an individual analysis of each document rather than a collective one. So it proactively can identify these documents looking at every single document within the set, by using case protocols and other contextual information in its analysis. So it makes these very clear predictions based on the prompt criteria that is provided to the tool and the continual built-in training that is embedded within the model.
And Parker and Danielle, just a couple of questions before we plow on, and they may seem very base, but I just want to clarify this for some of our listeners. Air is really only available in Rel 1. Is that correct?
Correct. So Air for Review is available in Rel 1, and then Air for Privilege, which just was made generally available last week, actually, yes, is also only available within Rel 1.
And for people who are tuning in going, what are you guys talking about? I haven't had access to any of this. They should know they're not alone. Access was just released, I believe, in September, you said, correct?
Correct.
General access for people to be able to access this technology is still relatively new. It's not as if this has been available to people for, the last 2 years.
Correct. Yes. So general access to these products is quite new. So definitely don't feel behind if you haven't had the chance to be able to use these products and get used to them and incorporate them into your daily workflows. There are lots of resources that we also have available to begin to upskill on these products. We'll be putting some links in chat to some trainings. You can also request a demo of Air 4 Review as well, if you'd like to be able to see it in action.
Awesome. Just wanted to clarify that for a lot of our listeners. And I think what's important for our listeners too to understand is part of the reasons why we at True wanted to partner with Relativity on this specific agenda is because it's so new and because there's still very much plenty of time for people to start making the investments, whether it's in their staff or in themselves, to begin educating, and you're not behind the curve. I think a lot of people came into the eDiscovery industry at a time when there were clear skill sets that they needed to catch up on. Well, here we are at the point of entry, right? This is the beginning of a community aggregating a new set of skills calibrated towards the most dominant technology player in the space. So we're trying to create a roadmap here for everybody when they're asking themselves or saying to themselves about their staff, what should I be looking to learn? Where should I be investing time? Where can I get competitive advantage? Here you go. This is the roadmap. So Parker, please continue.
For sure. Yeah, thanks for the added context. Okay, on the next slide, I did want to go into the specifics of Air for Review and Air for Privilege and delve a little bit deeper and explain how these tools actually work. So Air for Review leverages generative AI to analyze a set of documents in order to predict either what's responsive, locate specific issues, and or pinpoint key documents based on the prompt criteria supplied. I do want to note that the generative AI used within this tool is powered by Azure OpenAI's GPT-4 Omni large language model. It's a bit of a mouthful, but that is what is powering the generative AI that is leveraged within this product. So one of the best parts about Air for Review is that every single decision that it makes is supplemented by citations from the documents that are flagged as responsive. So you can see why this tool is predicting documents as a certain way, rather than it just doing its own thing on the back end and you not getting any insight as to why it's making these decisions. I also want to reiterate that Relativity does take the privacy and security very seriously of all jobs that are run through Air for Review. Absolutely no customer data is retained while you are running these jobs. So overall, this product delivers a more efficient, more consistent, and a higher quality document review than you would get by using other tools. I do also want to briefly touch on what Air for Privilege can do. So Air for Privilege, as I just said, it was made generally available just last week. So it is a very new product. And what it can do is analyze documents to identify them as privileged during a first pass review. So the tool continually learns in its identification of PI, resulting in very consistent results over time. And is the second product in the Air suite that is now available. And I know it's not on this slide, but I did want to kind of give a teaser for the third Air product that will be coming next year in 2025. This will be called Air for Case Strategy. And what it can do is extract critical facts and a timeline of events of a case to build that complete case narrative to more efficiently prepare for trial. So after document review is complete, this tool can immediately begin strategizing to present that clear overview of the story of a case to prepare for depositions and trial. So that's AIR for Case Strategy, which will be made available next year. All right, so now that I have kind of talked about some of these AI-powered tools, I wanted to talk about how certification fits into this. So specifically how we on the certification team at Relativity will be incorporating AI into our exams. And as you saw on that slide, our first foray into kind of an AI specific exam was the Generative AI Pro exam, which just launched earlier this year. But before I get into the specifics of that exam, I did want to show you the current state of the Relativity certification suite. So as a reminder, here are all of the exams currently offered by Relativity certification. We have the 3 different levels here. We have 7 pro exams there on the bottom section of this triangle, 6 specialist exams, and then the Relativity Certified Administrator or RCA exam. So as a reminder of the distinctions between these tiers, pro exams are very foundational introductory level exams. They don't require any prior experience or knowledge. We recommend around 5 hours of study time for these exams. And they're a great first step, whether you're brand new to Rel 1 or have been using the product for a while and want to learn about a different facet of the product or how to use it in a different way. And the 6 specialist exams, per the name, require more in-depth knowledge about a certain aspect of relativity. And then finally, the RCA is going to be your most comprehensive exam. It covers the full suite of relativity's front-end features and thus does have the highest amount of recommended experience and recommended time to prepare to take this exam.
And we'll also unpack a little later in this hour how these certifications play into job market demand and client requirements or desires when hiring, and what the kind of different combination of these might be able to do for you financially in terms of giving you more leverage in the industry.
Totally. And focusing back on the Generative AI Pro exam. So this was just launched in July. So it is our newest exam that we've added to the certification suite. To reiterate, it is an introductory foundational exam. So you don't need any prior experience using generative AI or really any experience knowing about the concept as a whole in order to both take and pass this exam.
Do you need
So
experience in relativity, though, Parker, or can people that may be working in another technology looking to get into the relativity ecosystem, is this a good place for them to start?
Totally. I think no prior experience is needed. I would recommend maybe if you have absolutely no experience using Rel 1, taking the certified pro exam first as kind of a great first step and learning more about the basic features of Rel 1 and then taking this exam, or kind of preparing for them both at the same time if you really wanted to focus in on AI and how to use it within Rel 1. So that's what I would recommend if someone had absolutely no experience using Rel 1. When studying for this exam, you will be provided also with a guide that contains all relevant links to related documentations and training. So all resources that you would need to sufficiently prepare for this exam are provided on that guide to help you study the most efficiently in order to pass this exam. Now, when building this exam, we didn't want it to focus in specifically on solely one product within the AIR suite. We wanted it to focus on generative AI as a whole, meaning that it tests on some larger generative AI concepts and terminology. It also focuses on relativity's AI principles that are implemented when we're developing these new products. And it does test on the main use cases of each AIR products too. So what can these products actually do and what problems can they help solve? Now, it does go a little bit deeper into AIR for review since this was the very first AIR product made publicly available. So it delves a little bit deeper into AIR for review, but touches on all 3 of those AIR products that I mentioned previously on what its use cases are or will be.
What I think is so interesting here, Parker, just as an outsider, I'm not in Relativity all day, every day as a user, but I am talking to users all day, every day of Relativity. And what I think is really compelling about this certification as this whole world evolves towards a more generative AI focused approach is that this is sort of empowering people to evangelize not only the use of air, but the use of AI, maybe more broadly. And what I think is really exciting and right about that is that this is step one. I mean, when we look at some of the ABA reporting in terms of how law firms are either willing or adopting AI technology, it's staggering what they've discovered. I mean, I think in law firms at 100 to 500 attorneys, like 83% of them aren't interested or aren't using AI yet. Well, we all know that's going to change, right? But it's not going to change as quickly as we all want it to if we at a ground level, out on the street, the people that are supporting all these lawyers or the lawyers ourselves supporting other lawyers aren't able to sell the idea of the utilization and the value prop and the safety and security around exploring these new ways of approaching the process. And so that's what I really got from this exam as a big takeaway. And I think it's important for everybody to hear that because look, you could be the best technologist in the world. You could be able to go in and wield air and do things with air that nobody else on the planet can do. But if nobody's buying it, if people are afraid to engage, that skill set will go underutilized. So it's important that everybody understand, as both practitioners and hiring managers, that we have to groom the next generation of eDiscovery talent to be both evangelists and executors.
Agreed. And a component of this exam, you will come away with an understanding of the security and privacy that is guaranteed by using this product. So you will learn some of those guardrails about using this product, so that way you're not jumping straight into it without kind of understanding exactly how the data is used, and can feel more secure when you eventually maybe implement one of these AIR tools in your workflows. Oh, I did want to say too that since the launch in July, we've had great feedback on this exam. I just ran the numbers this week, and we've had 270 people already pass this exam, I should say. So we've seen a lot of excitement about it, have been able to talk to a lot of people about it as a great foundational step in upskilling in AI knowledge. And finally, to kind of piggyback on what Danielle had mentioned, that generative AI, the Generative AI Pro exam is not the only exam that you can become certified in to validate your knowledge in machine learning, NLP, or AI-powered tools. So for example, Review Center is currently tested on exams such as the RCA and the Analytics Specialist, and then it is coming to the Review Management and Project Management Specialist in this quarter. So all of those exams will be testing on Review Center. Additionally, pro exams like the Data Breach Response Pro or the Contracts Pro exam, those each focus on a specific tool that uses pre-trained AI models as well. And then features mentioned in that AI and relativity timeline, like communication analysis and name normalization, are also tested on some exams like the RCA currently too. So if you're a job seeker, there are plenty of opportunities to become certified in these exams that test on a variety of AI-powered tools. So we just wanted to reiterate that the Generative AI Pro exam does focus solely on generative AI, but some of these AI-powered tools are peppered in our various aspects throughout the rest of the Relativity certification suite.
Yeah, I think it's really important for everyone to understand there's not going to be a singular place for you to go and say, I'm AIR certified and I can use AI and I have this one certification that proves it. This is going to be something that is sprinkled throughout the ecosystem, as well it should be, because the tools and the utilization of them is sprinkled throughout the ecosystem. And that was news to me. So I think it's important that people understand that, right? That it's not just going to be
Exactly.
hey, add this one thing to your portfolio. We have a couple questions before we get into the back half, where I'll do a little bit more of the talking about the job market. I just want to pepper you guys with a couple questions from our audience.
Sure.
The first one is, can you use AIR for review and AIR for privilege at the same time to review both relevance and privilege, or are they separate reviews?
That is a very good question. Now, I do want to reiterate that Danielle and I are not product experts on every single capability that you
Fair
can use
enough.
in these products. So using these two simultaneously, I am unsure
Danielle's
if
saying
there's an
no.
exact way.
No, they're two separate products. And they even like the how AI is leveraged, whereas Air for Review like doesn't retain client data. Air for privilege, excuse me, does like use that client brain to like kind of evaluate documents and learns over time. And so no is my answer. You would want to use Air for Review to identify what's relevant and then use Air for privilege. I am not aware yet of like a live use case where you would use Air for Review for like identifying privilege. And I don't know that I don't know enough about that specific use case, but I think we could take that offline as well.
Yeah. Well, good questions are ones without clear answers. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
I've got another one, and I'll answer this first. Should I pay the costs for certification if my firm doesn't agree to pay? And this is the advice I give people. I literally give this advice every day. I'm sorry, this guidance. I don't give advice. I give guidance. The guidance I'll give you is people invest in people who invest in themselves. And so if your employer isn't willing to invest in you, you're probably right to potentially consider employment elsewhere. But that burden shouldn't be put on another employer. You have to take responsibility for your own education sometimes. And these certifications are relatively affordable, right? The Generative AI Pro is very affordable. What's the price point on that certification, Danielle?
$50.
I mean, that should be within reason. And it's a good, conversation to lead us to this next question, which says, for everyone, but especially for Jared, are these pro exams enough, like Gen AI and Rel 1, for a working paralegal if I want to hone in my relativity skills, and if I decide to move on, I have this on top of my traditional legal skills, as I may not strictly want to do traditional lit support and e-discovery. I'll start with that and I'll say, are they enough? I think the short answer is yes. I think the short answer is any education that you get in these certifications is not only education, it's validation of education and also validation of self-interest and interest of the organization by getting that education. So all of this is enough. Um, is it going to make you somebody that can now go into relativity and do things that you couldn't do before? It doesn't sound like the Gen AI Pro Cert is really intended to do that. But correct me if I'm wrong, Danielle and Parker.
Yeah, the pro level certs are truly beginner level foundational. We provide you the questions that we're going to ask because we want you to kind of get familiar with the content, the documentation site, the resources that we provide you. So like maybe you know something about Gen AI already, or maybe it's, any of these exams, maybe you know something about Relativity 1 or review in relativity. And so like you can kind of skip over parts and make the study experience like your own, but the resources are there for those who know nothing. So if you're a student, if you're a paralegal, I think even if you have been in the industry a long time, these are a great place to start because they can kind of give you additional information in like you do have to study and like learn and try, and I guess you would get out of them what you put in. But they're really obtainable for everyone of all levels and a great place to start. And then I think if you're kind of intrigued or want to learn more, there are other paths within certification and training where you can do so.
But Danielle, using the Gen AI Pro as an example, with a
Mhm.
$50 threshold as a point of entry, that may be, to connect the dots to the previous question, that may be the place for you to self-invest in order to say, hey, employer, I got this. I did it on my own.
Yeah,
I'd like to go get one of these specialist certifications because the density of knowledge and the ability for me to potentially do things that could bill to a customer or a client or save money by internalizing in an in-house corporate legal department would benefit the organization. And I went and
yeah.
did this on my own to show you that I'm committed to it. And now I'm looking to you to invest a little bit more and me to go to the next level. That may be a good place to start if you're worried your employer is not going to back you. on something that is more expensive. And the price does go up as you move towards RCA and specialist certifications. Correct, Danielle?
Totally. And to add, Jared, people say the pro exams like kind of give them like the same language or vernacular to say like, hey, this is technology that exists. Like, should I talk to my manager about it? Or I can now talk to my manager about it. I can now investigate why this feature isn't turned on or ask my admin about it. Like it kind of like opens doors to conversations, giving you the same language to talk about products or features, and gives you more kind of concrete knowledge and access to kind of like some training material as well.
So our next question, and then we're going to keep plowing forward, but I think this question is actually a good transition into plowing forward. What are the current challenges and or gaps in eDiscovery and AI automation integration? I don't know if you guys have any perspective on that particular, but I sort of think it connects to the conversation that we're having right now, which is about evangelism. I think the biggest gap right now is getting buy-in from attorneys. And so we all have to be subscribers to wanting to encourage others to use the technology before they're just going to start to adopt it. That for me is what I'm seeing in the marketplace. But Danielle, Parker, any other perspective on that particular question? The challenges and gaps to getting integration?
Yeah, well, I think one kind of going off of what you said is just trust in the product, that for one, it's keeping data safe and secure, and that two, the recommendations and codings and documents that it provides it are accurate. So we made sure that these AIR products here at Relativity were validated in order to ensure that that you can trust them and do not have to go back and relook at everything that these tools provide. So we understand that it takes a while to be to learn, trust, and incorporate these new products, but I think that's one of the big things that with more education, more learning, more experience, people will start to achieve.
But I'll tell you what people don't need to work to get people to trust is the validity of relativity certifications, right? They are the most trusted certifications, for any technology in the eDiscovery ecosystem, and they're highly coveted. So if you're pursuing these, your employers are going to be impressed. And it leads us to another question. And MT, we can go on to the next slide because this actually transitions us nicely in terms of talking about what certifications make candidates stand out in legal support. And this question was for in an in-house capacity, but we'll answer that question for law firm, vendor, in-house. We'll answer that with great clarity and with data. But first, let me tell you what I saw happen at Relativity Fest, because it was very different than probably the last 2 or 3 Relativity Fests that I've been to. And what I experienced and what my team experienced was really that there were going to be a lot more people using AIR for review on first pass review in a more meaningful way than in the last several years. We just found that so many people that we do business with, law firm, vendor, and corporate alike, have moved from the, we're going to explore this to the, okay, we're going to put live active cases in it now that it's available to public consumption. And I think what we're going to see happen is that hiring managers aren't quite asking for rel gen AI experience when they're hiring right now. But a lot of that is because it's starting at the top, meaning a lot of the people who are wielding this tech or some who had access to it before general public did are leaders, right? They're people in leadership positions. I know a lot of lit support managers, directors, partners who are they're the ones driving this from the top down, not yet from the bottom up. And they're not yet ready to go out and say, okay, I need people to come into my department that have these skills, because they're still training their teams on what these skills are going to be, because for most of them, it is brand new. So we're not seeing yet what those demands are from a job space, but that's going to evolve in the next year. And, if we do this webinar a year from today, we're going to be having a completely different conversation. We're going to be lining up, a chart of here are the skills. And we think we know what some of them are going to be. And we'll get to that in a second as it relates to the true and relativity checklist. The other thing that's really clear from Relativity Fest is that law firms are going to be hiring a lot more talent and have hired a lot more talent in the last year. And that's largely due to the adoption of Relativity One, right? We've just seen a lot more law firms begin to buy it. Law firms have been hiring much more aggressively. The vendors have been running lean, but 2024 was the first time in 10 years that True tracked more open positions at law firms, more positions accepted at law firms than at service providers. And we believe that has a huge component to do with Rel 1 adoption. So that's something to keep in mind when pursuing skill sets or thinking about your next employer. We certainly have plenty of candidates who are in other technologies whose primary motivation in coming to us for other work is, I need to get somewhere where I can become a relativity person. I'm not using relativity and I feel like I'm disadvantaged in the job market by not having that skill set. Finally, role definition and skill adjustment are needed for the future state of eDiscovery talent ecosystem. Everybody knows it. Nobody really knows what it's going to be yet. So stay tuned. And if you're learning new skills that you didn't have a year ago today, that's good news. If you're not, someone else is. And the person that is probably the person that's going to be more competitive for the jobs a year from now. All right. Let's talk about True's relativity skills self-assessment. We developed this with Danielle and her team. We're so grateful for it. Here was the problem. Relativity adoption surged, 8, 9 years ago. Relativity certification ecosystem earned instant credibility, we just talked about, from employers. Hiring managers needed a more nuanced way to understand what people's skill sets were in relativity. A lot of people were not great at articulating it on the interview, not great at articulating it on their resume, and job seekers weren't sure how to talk about their skills the way that hiring managers wanted to hear it. So the solution was, we're going to create a self-assessment. We did this in 2016. We've had almost a decade now of collecting these. The self-assessment allows hiring managers to understand the job seeker's confidence. So this is not a test. You're not going to have true-false questions. We're going to show you exactly what it looks like in a second. And it allows job seekers to share their confidence, right? So, we coach people to be honest, but don't be too conservative, but don't be too unconservative with how you're filling this out, right? We want to try to get the most realistic sense of your confidence in your skills. So we've collected more than, how many is it now? More than 4,000 applicants over the last 5 years. And the number's actually even bigger than that if we go back all the way to 2016. But we're just taking the last 5 years, which is some of the data that we're going to get into. And if you haven't seen our 5-year relativity self-assessment report, we can put that maybe MT in the chat channel. It's a little dated now. It's about 2 years old. We're going to update you with some new statistics today. This is the self-assessment. This is what it looks like. So you're seeing a video now of what it would be like to go and check boxes. It literally takes less than 60 to 90 seconds to fill out. You score yourself on some experience, no experience, advanced or expert level experience. You fill out what certifications that you have in the ecosystem. Whether you're an expert or a master, you can upload your resume. This is now asked for by almost all of our customer base. We have hundreds of customers that ask for eDiscovery talent. This, what you're seeing right here, is what the client sees. So if you're a candidate that fills it out and you're wondering, well, what does the output look like? This is the output that accompanies your resume when you're submitting to a job through True Staffing Partners. And you could see the level of detail and nuance that this is now going to give a hiring manager into your relativity skill set. And what we found is, not only does this help hiring managers choose who they want to talk to and why, but it often guides the hiring manager into the kinds of inquisitive questions they're going to probe on 2 or 3 layers into the onion before they're even in the interview with the job seeker. So this is allowing a hiring manager to really see behind the curtains as to what you're great at and what you want to talk about and what you're ready to brag about on an interview, and where you have room to grow and what you're doing to fill those gaps. And job seekers should be prepared to talk about those things. It kind of takes the burden of tell me about your strengths and weaknesses out of the interview process, and instead places it on, okay, well, here are your strengths. Tell me about setting up workspace permissions. Tell me about, what you've done, in Air. These are the 4 areas that we've done critical trend analysis. So you just saw the 2 checklists. Or the output of the checklist and the checklist itself. So we've got all these 75 different checkpoints. We kind of bucket them into these categories, or at least we have in the past, and then aggregate how the community, over 4,000 job seekers, score themselves. And where do most people score themselves high in confidence? And where do most people score themselves low in confidence? And what does that tell us about the job market? This is where I'm going to answer that question about what certifications and skill sets make you more valuable and make you stand out in the job search. So here's Relativity's impact on the job market. Let's take a look. Relativity 1 job seeker adoption. So when we did our 5-year report 2 years ago, we found that only 19% of people that were applying for jobs were using Relativity 1. But from 2021 to 2023, that jumped to 64%. So you could see that adoption is real. We've gone from people seeking to get Rel 1 skills as part of their job search process to people now leveraging their Rel 1 skills as part of their job search process, which is very different. And you can see here as we go from the 3 kind of 2-year chunks that we've taken, which is 18 to 20, 21 to 23, and then 23 to present, where people are sort of scoring themselves in terms of job seekers. And you may say to yourselves, well, this kind of makes sense, Jared, but why did actually Rel 1 decrease in terms of the last relativity version job seekers used over the last 2 years? If there's so much adoption, why did the amount of people applying for jobs decrease that are using Rel 1? Well, the question is the answer. Because there's so much adoption and a lot of job seekers who are not using Rel 1 are looking to change jobs in order to start getting at an employer that is using Rel 1. And that's why we believe we saw this needle sort of move in the other direction, because between 21 and 23, there were so many people that were leveraging what they learned between 2018 and 2021. We believe we'll continue to see slight modality shifts in this, but what we aren't seeing is such dramatic shifts that make us think, adoption isn't leverageable. It definitely is. Having Rel 1 is going to give you competitive advantage. And quite frankly, the people that are in Rel 1 now are going to have potentially more advantage by getting access to some of these tools that Server doesn't yet provide. Which, Danielle and Parker, brings me to one of our questions, and maybe you can help us with this. As a project manager who only has access to Rel Server right now, how can I study for a Rel 1 exam? What's the best way to study for that?
I'll take this. And Parker, if you have anything to add, please do. But basically, so while there have been divergences from Relativity Server and Relativity 1, there are a lot of similarities. Core relativity is still the same. I also think, so through study materials, you can get a feel for how things look a little bit different because the UI, the user interface, has updated a bit over time. So the UI is changing, but core things like searching, indexing, building dashboards, building reports, really there's a lot of similarity and overlap there. And so I think while there are significant and noticeable changes between server and Rel 1, like active learning to review center, or air for review only in Rel 1, I kind of look at it as like you will be learning more than you need in case your position or aspirations change. So which, depending on which exam you register for, the RCA also does give you a prep environment. So we give you a practice environment, a workbook, sample data. It's yours. So you can play in that workspace, get familiar with Relativity 1 if you're not using it, get familiar with the features. And so I think kind of more knowledge is good. I understand there are challenges though, but I wouldn't be afraid because I think at the end of the day, you will still learn something also about how you can use server better too.
And one quick thing to add too, Danielle is going to talk about this later, but the Relativity Learning platform has a lot of videos and interactive trainings too. So if you're more concerned about visually being able to see, what a certain tool looks like or what that new UI looks like, you can complete these free trainings in that platform to kind of get a sense of what things look like. And a lot of these trainings are recommended and contained in those guides for each exam.
Beautiful. MT, let's talk about Rel 1's impact on hiring trends. This is a breakdown of where the jobs are based on organization. So 4 types a software company, a service provider, a consulting firm, a corporation, or a law firm. And you could see here, as I mentioned, this is the first time in 10 years that law firm hiring has outpaced vendor hiring in terms of offers accepted that we've tracked, and how little software companies and corporations are hiring relative to the amount of hiring in law firms and vendors. It's sort of a fascinating breakdown. I will be very honest. I don't know if this trend will be the same by the end of this year. We're seeing a pretty big uptick in the vendor space over the last few weeks, a very aggressive one. As I mentioned on many of my webinars, the vendors in this space have been running very lean on staff for almost 2 years, and I just don't think that that's sustainable anymore for most of these organizations. So I think we're going to see a big uptick in vendor hiring headed into the new year. Moving on to Relativity Review job seeker skill trends. You're probably looking at this going like, am I really supposed to interpret all this data? Jared, what am I looking at? So what you're looking at is the percentages of people who scored themselves based on no experience, some experience, advanced, or expert. And I want to draw attention here to the trend that I see. And Parker and Danielle, please tell me if you see something different or if this sort of validates it. If I had to pick which of the things on this list were most closely aligned with AI skills, I would probably say using case dynamics, creating relativity dynamic objects, maybe. Where else would you say like AI is baked into some of these kind of experiences or skills? And would my assumptions be correct?
I was going to say also the first one, so configuring and using review workflows, especially with Review Center and now Air for Review. So as those tools get adopted more, I would say definitely that one. Danielle, anything else that you would think aligns with AI?
I mean, not looking at, I know this isn't the entire skills assessment, but like translate or some of the things I talked about on the earlier slides. So
Yeah.
Structured
I-
analytics, name normalization, communication
yeah,
analysis, things like that.
I know you have like the
We're gonna get to
earlier. Okay,
it.
cool.
We're gonna get to
Yeah.
it. But here's the point I want to make. And I'll comment on Parker's observations separate from the point I'm going to make. If you look at case dynamics, if you look at creating relativity dynamic objects, and you look at a few of those other things that are, creating using automated workflows, maybe is one of those two. They score pretty low on the volume of people, right? If 4,000 people filled this out in the last 5 years, they're scoring at like 7%, 12, 14%. That's really low, right? That means the corpus of the community doesn't have as high a confidence in wielding those skills as they do in configuring and using review workflows, right? Very few people there with no experience. A lot of people there with expert level experience, right? A lot of people with expert level experience creating and using persistent highlighting sets. A lot of people with experience creating markup sets. So to answer this question, I know I keep coming back to your question, Crystal. To answer this question, what do I learn to make myself stand out? What do I learn to make myself unique? This data helps tell you the answer to that question, because this tells you where most people have the highest degree of confidence and where most people have the lowest degree of confidence. And if there's an opportunity for you to get those skills that people are not confident in, you will likely be able to find higher premiums and vertical mobility in terms of compensation. You may not find the same volume of jobs, right? There are going to be probably more volume of jobs for people day in, day out who can configure and use review workflows. To Parker's comment that I think is really important for everybody to hear, what this means is going to change in air. So what configuring and using review workflows means is not going to be the same thing 2 to 3 years from now as it means today. And so for those of you who consider yourself experts today, you should examine what new technology is available and what you can learn in order to maintain that level of expert confidence as the technology evolves. You have to evolve with it. And any comments before I go on to kind of looking at the advanced analytics part of the checklist? Because I think this is what you were going to mention in a second, Danielle.
Well, I think the checklist will be evolving, Jared. So typically
Yes.
right now we update it like maybe once a year. And obviously once a year may or may not include like every single
Correct.
thing ever. So
Correct.
I think as we roll out more products, Air for Review, Air for Priv, Air for Case Dynamics, and we learn more about how it's used in the wild when more people are using it. Maybe you could see something on here about like prompting,
Totally.
or other things. So I would expect your checklist and our exams to evolve, which is a good thing.
Hallelujah.
And yeah, 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 yeah.
And thank you in advance for evolving it for us and with us. But if we're going to look at conglomerate data and say like, okay, 4,000 plus people, this is what the 4,000 plus people have been tested on for the last 5 years. As you can see here, it is a very low percentage of people who are scoring themselves expert using conceptual analytics, structured analytics, or even using Review Center, which was recently added. So that actually may not constitute 4,000 people because it was recently added. But this is an area for you if you're a job seeker to go and get expertise, right? Using Air for Review, which was added, I think, a few months ago, not even. You could see how many people have no experience. That's because it's brand new. So we shouldn't feel disappointed in that. But it is where we can point to chase the red. Go chase the red if you want to distinguish yourself in this ecosystem and also be on kind of the tip of the spear, right? Beautiful. MT next. Great. We're coming to the end. We've got about 10 minutes left. I want to give some quick guidance to hiring managers and job seekers to sort of summate everything here. Then I'm going to give Danielle and Parker a moment to close, and then we'll take any last questions that we have time for. Hiring managers, if you're listening, build retention plans around your current staff using Gen AI technology. They are valuable, valuable employees. As you knowledge transfer from executive level down to your staff, know that you are going to need to retain those people because they're going to be sought after by other employers in the coming 12 months. Job seekers, start aggregating your Air and Rel Gen AI skill sets for future vertical and financial mobility. It may not be there now as leverage, but we know it's going to be leveraged later. Hiring managers, categorize Gen AI billable hours and bill at a premium. These skill sets, these staff members are going to be able to charge a different price point than a traditional eDiscovery project manager. And we're all going to need to consider new pricing models for both our time and our technology as we move into the future. Job seekers, highlight tasks and or employer expectations on your resume as related to Gen AI and LLM training. So if you're doing some of this work, you need to bring it out. If you're researching some of this work, you need to bring it out. One of the pieces of guidance we give to job seekers all the time, if you're registered to take your RCA or your Rel Gen AI Pro exam, but it's not until the future, put that on your resume that you are scheduled to take the test. This is when you're going to take it. You'll know whether you're certified at this time, and it's on your roadmap. Things that are on your roadmap educationally can be just as valuable and may be more important talking points on an interview than your actual previous experience. Hiring managers, begin formalizing your interview Q&A around Gen AI skill set investigation. What are you asking people besides what everyone that's a client of mine seems to be asking people, which is a very banal, tell me about your AI skill set or curiosity. We need to start drilling in on what questions am I going to ask to actually elicit a more detailed and thoughtful response from a candidate that helps me know whether or not they're right to hire. Job seekers, prepare your interview narrative because you're going to get asked this question, okay? Hiring managers, finally, is there one more? Yes. Outline Gen AI knowledge succession planning and scale utilization. How are you going to trickle this down through your whole staff ecosystem in order to begin leveling from the bottom up instead of simply from the top down, right? We need the soldiers selling as much as the generals. And finally, if you're a job seeker, identify a white knight. Who is the stakeholder who can be a mentor to you? Who can you go to that's in the weeds on this or part of an AI steering committee at your organization that you can begin developing even a casual relationship with, even an inquisitive relationship with? This will help you become a better professional as it relates to AI tool adoption. This is my guidance. MT, I'm going to turn it over to Danielle and Parker to give us some final information on where we can expect Relativity to test or validate Air products in the future. Danielle?
Yes. So coming in 2025 will be an Air for Priv Pro level exam. So again, that beginner level kind of foundational exam. And then Air for Review will begin to be added to relevant exams. And MT, if you go to the next slide, right now that would be RCA, analytics, project management, review management, and probably all of the pro level exams will have either Air for Pro or their own kind of like Air for Privilege will have Air for Privilege on it, not Air for Review. Um, and so we'll probably add Air for Review, and like as our Air suite evolves, evolve like what our offerings are and what exams they either will become standalone or incorporated into existing relevant exams.
So, hey, RCAs out there, don't be surprised if you're job interviewing in 2025, an employer start asking, when did you take your RCA? When were you certified? It may be a good idea to make sure you're recertifying and getting all your credits to be as up to date as possible. Don't let your RCA lapse. Listen, I can tell you some horror stories about some candidates who let their RCA lapse and wish they hadn't done so, right? Stay ahead of the curve. This isn't just for people looking to get more education. This is for the people who've already gotten it that need to enhance it and update it. Danielle?
And so you've just reminded me something else I can share. But MT, if you go to the next slide, I want to talk about relativity learning. So if you're kind of sitting here thinking about you want to learn more about generative AI, Air for Review, or you have some certs maybe, but you still want to learn more, or maybe you were part of our advanced access program and you know a little bit, but haven't kind of reviewed all that's out there, Relativity Learning is the place for you to go. So Relativity Learning is Relativity's new, as of August, LMS or Learning Management System. And so if you've been with Relativity for a while, we used to have the training center where all of our videos, instructor-led trainings, tutorials, webinars kind of lived on our website. But that wasn't as fun as Relativity Learning is now. So you can access Relativity Learning by creating a free Relativity community account on our website and heading over to the Relativity Learning tab, and you'll be brought immediately into Relativity Learning where you can access free content related to everything we've just talked about. So highlighting a few things in particular, there's the AI Fluency, AI and Relativity Products Learning Path, which is something cool and now that we can do with the LMS, where you'll take courses on like Relativity's AI history, which you may hear some things repeated that I shared earlier, introduction to our Air suite and Air for Review, Air for Priv specifically. There's also a new Air for Priv introductory course that launched a few weeks ago. Also, Jared, since you brought up earning credits, something new we're experimenting in relativity learning is creating learning paths for RCEs. And so exactly as you said, we have included Review Center, Air for Review, and relativity contracts on a specific learning path for everybody that's certified that needs credits, because we want you to like know about this and we want you to get experience with it. It will help you in your eDiscovery job, or I think in life in general. And so you can act today. These are free. You can get more familiar with it. And then if you want to pursue the pro exam, you can also find that study guide in the relativity community. So you log in, head on over to the cert tracker, and you can download the Relativity Generative AI Pro study guide from the certification tracker and peruse that and get started on your journey. Jared, I think you're on mute.
I think that's everything we have for today. I think we've answered most of the questions we have in the chat. If anyone's got any last minute questions, please don't be shy. In the meantime, we put a lot of links here at the very end in the webinar chat for everybody, including the Relativity Learning link, the AI Fluency course, True Self-Assessment, If you'd like to connect, and please do, if we've never spoken before, please connect with me. If you're somebody that reaches out to me on LinkedIn, you will get a response from me, I promise. We care deeply about, the intimacy of communications with the people that we're representing. So don't be shy, don't be a stranger. Parker and Danielle, also available always on LinkedIn. I know they're always here for questions. They're two of the kindest, most approachable and knowledgeable people that I have the great privilege of sharing some airtime with. And I thank both of you and Relativity for partnering with us on what I think was an incredibly educational deep dive into the AI world surrounding relativity and how it will impact people's futures in the job market. Thank you, Parker. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and fill out a relativity self-assessment.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Happy to join.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.